Good morning everyone. Today the subject is programming for problem solving and the topic of today is loops in C programming language. So we start. So first what is loop? Loop in programming come into use when we need repeatedly execute a block of statement. Means the needs of loop arise in C programming when we want to execute a block of statement multiple times. Suppose if we want to write hello world 10 times, then without using loop, what we do? We simply write by using the printf statement 10 times hello world, printf hello world. Like that, we write printf hello world. We write this statement 10 numbers of times. So this is the disadvantage. It takes lots of time to execute this statement. Suppose if we write 100 times, then we write 100 times printf statement to execute the hello world statement. So the alternative of this solution is loops. Here the loops come into picture as the solution of this problem. In loop, the statement need to be written only once and the loop will be executed 10 times. What we do? We write this statement only one time and it will execute how many times we want? 10 times. So this is the advantages of loop. A loop is a sequence of instruction that is repeated until a certain condition is reached. In loop, we use a condition. We always describe a condition, and when the specific condition is met, then the loop will be execute. A loop executes the sequence of statement many times until the stated condition becomes false. The statements are executed until the condition becomes false. A loop consists of two parts. There are two parts in loop. First one is the body of loop and second part is the control statement of a loop. The control statement is a combination of some conditions that direct the body of the loop to execute until the specified condition becomes false. Control statement, it controls the loops, and when the condition that we given in the beginning of the loop, when it becomes false, then we move out of the loop. The purpose of loop is to repeat the same code a number of times. Basically, why we use loop? When we want to repeat the same number of statement many times, then we use the loop in C programming. Then, what are the types of loops? There are basically two categories of loop. First one is entry control loop and second one is exit control loop. In entry control loop, the condition is specified in the starting of the loop. In this type of loop, the test condition is tested before the entering the loop body. Means we already discussed that there are the two parts of loop, the body of the loop and the control statement. So when the condition is given at the before entering into the body of the loop, then it is called as the pre-checking loop. Entry control loop is also known as the pre-checking loop. So there are the two types of entry control loop. Example, loop, for loop and while loop. These are the two types of loop which are known as the entry control loops. Second category is exit control loops. In this type of loop, the test condition is tested or evaluated at the end of the loop body. Means when the loop is complete, then we check the condition. This is known as exit control loop. Therefore, the loop body will execute at least once. Here, this one is the important line that in exit control loop, the loop body is execute once. But in case of the entry control loop, if the condition is false, the loop B will not enter in the loop. But in case of exit control loop, the condition is false or true, once time the loop will be execute, because we check the condition at the end of the loop. Irrespective of whether the test condition is true or false, the loop will be run one time. It is also called as the post checking loop. Do while is an example of exit controlled loop. So this is the diagram where we describe the types of loop. This is the category of loop: entry control loop and exit control loop. Two types of loop. First one is while loop and second one is first one is for and second one is while loop. And in exit control only one type of loop is coming, that is do while loop. We will describe these loops in detail. First one is for loop. For loop. A for loop is a repetition control structure which allow us to write a loop that is executed a specific number of times. When we want to execute a particular statement various number of times, then we prefer the for loop. The loop enables us to perform n number of steps together in one line. What we do, what is the syntax of for loop? For every loop there is a syntax, how we write the statement. We should follow these syntax. The syntax is, first we write for, then we write initialization, second one is condition, and third one is increment and decrement operation. Initialization mein it is what is the initial value for the starting of the loop. For example, we initialize I equal to 0. Then we write semicolon, and after that the condition, how many times we want to execute that loop. Suppose if we want to execute it 4 times, then we write I is less than 5 times, then we write I is less than 5. Then it will execute 0 to 4. Then increment and decrement operation, here we increase value or we can also decrease the value of that variable. Then in the body of the loop, what we write? We write the statement which we want to execute multiple numbers of times. This is the syntax of for loop. Initialization, the initial value of the for loop is performed only once. The initial value is performed only one time. For example, if we write int I equal to 1 or I equal to 0 or any other value. Then the condition, it is the Boolean expression that is used to test the counter to a fixed value after each iteration. When the loop is executed one time, then after each iteration, the condition is check. Stop the for loop when false is returned. The for loop will stop when the condition become false. For example, if we write I is less than 10, less than or equal to 10, when I is value is greater than 10, that is 11, then the loop condition is false and we return from that loop. Increment and decrementation means increase or decrease the counter by a set value. For example, I plus plus or I minus minus. So this is the flow diagram of for loop. Start with the start statement, then initialization expression, for example, I equal to 1, then we check the condition I is less than or equal to 5. So loop will execute from I is equal to 1 to I is equal to 5. Okay, when the value of I is 6, when I value is become 6, the loop will go to stop. If the test condition is, for example, if I is 3, 4, the condition is true and a certain block of statement is execute, and every time when the statement is execute, it will update the value. First it become 3, it will true, execute the statement, then it will become 4, after that it will become 5, and when it will become 6, then the condition is false and the loop will be stopped. So this is a simple example of for loop to print the hello world. What we do, irrespective of written multiple times of hello world statement, we just use the for loop concept. We initialize a variable I equal to 0, and in for loop we initialize its value by I equal to 1. We want to execute hello world 10 times. Here we write I is less than equal to 10. First, what will happen? It will check I is equal to 1. Then I is less than equal to 10. I is equal to 1 and I is less than equal to 10, the condition is true because 1 is less than equal to 10. When it becomes true, it will go to the body of the loop and the statement will execute. It will print hello world. After that, it will increment the value. Then the value of I is become 2. When the I is 2, 2 is also less than equal to 10. The condition is true. What will happen? It will print hello world again. Similarly, for I is equal to 3, I is equal to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when the I value is become 11, after 10, it will increment and it will become 11. I is less than 11 is less than equal to 10. No, the condition become false. And when the condition is become false, then it will return 0. It will comes out from the loop. So hello world is printed 10 times. So this is the concept how we use for loop in C language. Now the second loop is while loop. Second one is while loop. It is also known as the entry control loop. A while loop is the most straightforward looping structure. While studying for loop, we have seen that the number of iteration is known beforehand. What we seen in for loop, that we already know how many times we want to execute the loop. But in case of while loop, the number of times the loop body is needed to be executed is known to us in the for loop. But in while loop are used in situation where we do not know the exact number of iteration of loops. When we don't know how many times we execute our loop, then we will move to the while loop in respect of the for loop. The loop execution is terminated on the basis of test condition. The loop is already terminated when the test condition become false. It is same in all the loops. The syntax of while loop, here the initialization expression is right before starting of the loop. Then after that we write while and we give the condition. For example, we write the condition, for example, I is less than 10 and here we give I is 1. Then the certain statement I can execute. After that, we give the increment or decrement operation. There is important note that in while loop, if the condition is not true, then the body of the loop will not be executed, not even once. If the condition is false, then the body of the loop will not executed. This is the flow diagram of a flow chart of while loop. We start the while loop start, and after that we test the condition. If the condition is true, then the body of the loop will be executed, and if the condition is false, then the loop end. So this is an example of while loop. Here we want to print the number 1 to 10. Then here we initialize this is the initialization expression. We initialize the num variable y1. Initialize the num variable y1 and we write a test condition that num is less than or equal to 10. Then what will happen? It will check 1 is less than or equal to 10. The condition is true. And the condition is true, then the body of the loop will be executed. It will print the num. So it will print 1. Okay. Then the value of the num will increment and it will become 2. Here it will become 2. Then 2 is also less than 10. Then it will print 2. And it will increment, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 9, then 10. When it will print 10, then after that it will increment and become 11. 11 is less than or equal to 10. No, the condition is false. When the condition is false, then the loop will be stopped and we move out of the loop and it will return 0. So this is how we use the while loop. The basic difference between the for loop and the while loop is that in for loop we know in the starting of the loop that how many times we want to execute our statement. But in while loop, we don't know the exact number of times the statement will execute. Then the third type of loop, which is known as the exit control loop. It is do while loop. In do while loops, the loop execution is terminated on the basis of test condition. The main difference between the do while loop and the while loop is that the while loop, the condition is tested at the in do while loop, that condition is tested at the end of the loop of the body. Means in while loop and the for loop, the condition is tested at the starting of the body. That's why these two loops are known as the entry control loop. But in do while loop, the condition is tested at the end of the body. So it is also known as exit control loop. Exit controlled loop. And one more difference between the while and do while loop is that in while loop, the loop will not execute if the test condition is false. But in do while loop, the loop will execute one time if the test condition is false. So this is the syntax of do while loop. We write the initialization expression, then we write do, and whatever the statement we want to execute, we write it, then update, that is increment or decrement operation. Then at the last of the loop, we check the condition. And the semicolon, this is the important point, that the semicolon is in the end of the loop. The body of do while loop is executed once, only then the test expression is evaluated. Means if the condition is false, then the body will be executed at least once. If the expression is true, the body of the loop is executed again and again, and the expression is evaluated. This process goes on until the test expression becomes false. If the test expression is false, then we move out of the loop. That means the loop will end. This is the flow chart of do while loop. Here we write do while loop. There is a silly mistake. Do while loop, start, then execute body of the loop. Then if the condition is false, then the loop will stop. And if the condition is true, then it will execute. This is the example of do while loop. We want to print the table of 2. What we do? We simply initialize the variable num by 1, and we write the do statement and giving the statement what we want to execute. We want to print the table of 2, so 2 multiply the num and increase the num variable, and when we test the condition at the last of the loop. So how it will execute? 2 multiply by 1, it will print 2. Okay. After that, it will update and it will become 3. Num value will update 3. Then 2 multiply by 3, 3. Then 3 is also less than 10. Then it will become 4. Then 6, then 8, then 9. And when the condition is false, then it will stop. What is infinite loop? So these 3 basic loops. What we will discuss? We will discuss the basic 3 types of loop, that is for loop, while loop and do while loop. These are the 3 basics loop in C programming. Beyond these loops, there is a term that comes infinite loop. So what is infinite loop? An infinite loop sometimes called as an endless loop, means the loop that is not end. It is a piece of code that lacks a functional exit so that it repeats indefinitely. An infinite loop occurs when a condition always evaluates to true. Usually it will become an error. Here we simply write for semicolon semicolon. This is an infinite loop as the condition expression is blank, because we will not give any test condition that how many times the loop will execute. So it will run forever. So this is an example of infinite loop, that is an endless loop. So there is some important points about loop. First one is use of for loop. When number of iterations are known beforehand, that is the number how many times the loop body will execute, we already know, then we prefer for the for loop. And when we use while loop, then we don't know the number of iteration before and the loop termination condition is known. Do while loop, if the code needs to be executed at least once, means one time if we want to execute our loop, at least once time, then we prefer the do while loop, and it is used in menu driven programs. So this is the difference between for and while loop. For loop is used for definite loops when the number of iteration is known, as I already told you, and while loop when the number of iterations are not known. For loops can have their counter variable declared in the declaration itself, and in while loop there is no built-in loop control variable within a while loop with a while loop. And for loop, this is preferable when we know exactly how many times the loop will be repeated, and we don't know how many times the loop will be repeated, then we prefer the while loop. So the loop iterate infinite number of times if the condition is not specified, and if the condition is not specified, it shows a compilation error in while loop. So this is the difference between while and do while loop. The basic difference is that while loop condition is giving at the top, and in do while loop the condition is giving at the bottom, that means at the end of the loop. And in while loop, no necessity of brackets if there is a single statement in body, but in do while loop brackets are compulsory even if there is a single statement. There is no semicolon at the end of the while loop, but in the end of the do while loop there is a need of the semicolon. And it is also known as anti-control loop, it is exit control loop. And the while loop, if the condition is false, then the statement will not execute, the body of the loop will not execute, even a single time it will not execute. But in do while loop, if the condition is become false, then the body of loop will execute one time, because the condition is checked at the end of the loop. So that's all.